even for a moment. So imagine being stared at all day, every day. 24-year-old Kevin Michael Connolly, who was born without legs, knows what that is like. He decided to capture many of those stares, taking more than 33,000 photographs in 17 countries. And he's written a memoir about the experience called Double Take. Kevin Michael Connolly, good morning to you.
How's it going?
It's going really well. How's it going for you?
Good, good. Just flew out of Montana, so, you know, it's nice to kind of be in semi-warmer climate.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you consider this semi-warmer. So what made you do this?
You know, it really spawned from, I guess, just this single moment of frustration I had traveling back in 2006 in Vienna. I'd just been getting stared at the whole time, as well as kind of the inherent language barrier of not being able to speak Austrian and being treated like a beggar. I had people coming up and giving me money from time to time, and all of that, I think, kind of snowballed into just like one moment where I snapped a shot from my hip down a back street in Vienna, and it just spiraled from there, and the countries kept stacking up, and in the book it kind of talks about going out twice to actually have to do this.
But you point out in the book that you don't take these pictures in any way to criticize the people who are staring. Quite the opposite.
No, not exactly. Yeah, and I think, you know, it was that first photo, while it was kind of spawned from, I think, a certain amount of like unthinking frustration. As I shot more and more, I realized, you know, I'm as culpable as the next person. Like, I stare at people too. It's just such a knee-jerk human response that it's not something you can necessarily criticize.
But people don't just stare at you. You say they seem to have this need to create a story in their heads about why you have no legs. What do you think that is about?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do, like when you people watch and you see someone who kind of sits a bit outside, you know, your average passerby, you maybe start to think of how they got to that position. And I mean, I've had all sorts thrown at me. I mean, I've been an Iraqi war veteran, a victim of the Balkan Wars while I was traveling in Sarajevo, thalidomide, shark attack, car accident, I mean, you name it. And a lot of it comes from, I think, this very human need to affix meaning or narrative to something they don't understand.
There was a time when you were in Bosnia, you say, that you almost decided to scrap this project altogether. Why is that?
Well, I mean, like, honestly, in the book, the Sarajevo chapter is the most important to me, and it was because how difficult that was. It was, you know, me traveling around in Sarajevo and seeing, you know, strafe marks on the buildings and other people either missing limbs. I saw one guy specifically that I saw missing an arm and a leg, and caught myself wondering, well, how'd that happen? In much the same way that I'd been subjected to over the past 20-odd years.
Have you ever been in a place, Kevin, where people have not stared? Is there, do you know what I mean, or any society where people don't seem to pay attention?
I mean, you New Yorkers are a little sneaky. For the most part, people are pretty dead on in the States, but you still, I mean, you shoot and you still catch people doing the old, like, side glance. It's harder to catch, but it still happens.
I know that you're pretty much unflappable, but the one thing that makes you cringe is when people call you an inspiration. Why is that?
I mean, I think part of it is just the fact that, you know, I was born without legs, and you know, I have it pretty sweet. I get to ride around on a skateboard. And
you don't use a wheelchair? You don't use prosthetic limbs?
No, I mean, I use a wheelchair for certain things like getting, cooking and shopping, but like 95% of the time I'm on the skateboard, and it's tremendously fun, and, you know, I've not really had any sense of loss or you know, emotional issues throughout my life, and so I just kind of feel a bit unqualified, I guess, to be an inspiration.
What do you mean you never had any sense of loss? Why do you think that is?
You know, because being born without legs, I don't really have any contrast. Like, hey man, in my mind I'm whole. Like, it's not a big deal. And so, you know, and I was also treated that way growing up. I mean, everyone just kind of took what I could do at face value, and it was, I don't know, very Montanan in a way.
Well, that's right. I mean, you talk about your parents, too, because, I mean, you were born without legs, and they had a choice to make, and they were like, we're bringing this boy home, and the rest we'll just make up as we go along, and they instilled a lot of the strength of character that you have today. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, and it was certainly one of those things where they didn't change their lifestyle. They're like, we still want to go hiking, we still want to go camping and river rafting, and better keep up. And so, you know, through you know, a number of different adaptations, you know, this call it a butt boot or a boot moccasin.
It's a butt boot, okay.
A butt boot, whatever you want to call it.
Your dad helped invent that, right?
Yeah, my dad and my grandfather both kind of put together the early model, and this is kind of the end point of its evolution.
Is it true that a couple of elderly ladies tried to steal your butt boot?
Yeah, they
at a
did.
Ski resort?
A couple days before I was supposed to head to New Zealand on a study abroad trip, I was up skiing and left my shoe under a bench, came back and it was gone. And I found out that 2 women had taken it, wanting to turn it into a flower pot. They returned it anonymously, though, so if you're out there.
Well, at least they returned it. And
yeah, that's true. That is true.
There are people who are going, what did he say? Did he just say he went skiing? But you don't just ski. You participate in the X Games. Took home a silver medal in 2007. You're going to be back in 2010?
Yeah. Actually, it was that silver medal and the money I got from him that allowed me to go out and take the photos for this rolling exhibition. So skiing is just incredibly important to me. I was training all of last week. I just actually built a new monoski for the competition. And, yeah.
Is there anything you won't do?
What?
Is there anything you won't do?
I'm too impatient to probably be a good fisherman.
Oh,
I've never been particularly great at that. And the casting, it always gets hooked in the bushes behind you.
Finally, throughout this project, you want to make people question what they do on Reflex, but what did you learn in a nutshell?
I think that curiosity and staring and this kind of visual dialogue that happens, it's all pervasive. I'm as guilty and culpable as the next person. And so, it wasn't so much a condemnation of people staring or anything like that. It was just a document.
Well, I'm not going to call you an inspiration because that makes you crazy, but can I tell you, you're gorgeous. I will call you that. There you go. You're welcome. Kevin Michael Connolly, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, the book is Double Take, and you can read an excerpt on our website.